So I hate to say this, but I can kind of map themes that I wish would go away to very specific consensus conferences. That's why I can say that. But like ICO, when is this, at least in that form, when is this going to go away? Right? And you know, block class, when is this going to go away?
Well, it's also like consensus can be mapped on both.
Of course.
It's like the history of both.
The world is a meme, and the world wants the next meme. We represent the ultimate because we integrate this idea of everything can be a meme with something that allows you to trade the game, right? So it's yeah.
Yeah, I often felt that, you know, and I feel like it has consensus because it is the crowd, it's the masses, it's the market in a way. Yeah. You can't stop it. You can't stop the speculation. You can't stop the wild ride. And as somebody who has invested in that and ridden those wild rides and speculation and then you know the greed and the fear and everything else coming through it. What lessons have you learned as an investor?
I like to call myself degenerate or degenerate energy. I think it's really important. One of the things when I got involved in the Bitcoin enthusiast club of 2015, when I met Phil and Charlie and a lot of other people who've been around the industry for a long time, it's technology, but also it's culture and communities, which is why we have these big events and we all come here to meet each other in real life, because at the end of the day, I don't think this is just building a better payment rail or building better infrastructure. It's really about creating these movements. Like Bitcoin is inherently a social movement, a cultural movement, and there is an element of religiosity to it. So for me, I've always embraced that side of the crypto ecosystem, and as an investor, what I've always looked for is where are people spending their time and energy, because that is really, capital is a commodity, right? There's so much capital in our world, there's so much money in our world. That's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for where are people spending their time and energy. That is really the scarce asset. That is a challenging thing to capture. So it's always sort of been my guiding force or guiding principle is where are people going, where are the conversations happening, and where is culture going? So first it was Bitcoin, then it was Ethereum, then it was ICOs, then it was enterprise blockchains, then it was layer 2 scaling solutions, new L1s. Now we're seeing the proliferation of new coins, Web3 social. And so I think just as these movements happen, it's interesting to observe where do people go, and where people go, where culture is created, that's where capital flows. So I think you just have to follow where those dogmatic, really just driven individuals who are absolutely insane, right? It's the bell curve. We want to be on the extreme left or the extreme right, never in the middle. And so I've always just followed people. It's a relationship business, and wherever there are cults that form, that's where capital flows. So that's why I like so much.
And I will also point out that so Bill was the start of 2015. Melton was the start of 2016. Hosted the show, right? Oh, you certainly hosted the points, and again, I think it really was your launch pad. So we do truly have representatives of this history here. But Charlie, you precede all of that. In some respects, you the OG of OGs here, because what 2011 you got into Bitcoin, is that right?
2011 is when
2011, right? That's pretty early, guys. And then created, maybe not the first altcoin, one of the first, but certainly the one that drew so much attention at the time. Why don't you give us a rundown about what you were trying to achieve with Litecoin? What was the purpose about saying, you know what, there's this great thing called Bitcoin, but we have a different name?
Well, I kind of just created it for fun. So it wasn't, I didn't have a master plan when I created Litecoin. I was kind of playing around with the Bitcoin code base, and there were quite a bunch of other altcoins out there. Believe it or not, Litecoin wasn't the first. And yeah, I just wanted to create something better, something faster than Bitcoin, just slightly different, and market it as silver to Bitcoin's gold, kind of a complement to Bitcoin, and kind of just took off unexpectedly. I didn't really expect much from it.
I mean, it's interesting because when we talk about memes a bit here, I think that one of the things, I mean, obviously you built a solid code base and it worked, which was great, but there was a branding choice there that worked very well. You know, you were not going to necessarily try to outcompete Bitcoin, you were going to be silver to gold. And I think it really resonated. What was the thinking behind that particular terminology?
Yeah, a lot of other coins were trying to brand themselves as the next Bitcoin. I mean, they still do today. I think it was just, in hindsight, very smart to kind of be a complement to Bitcoin, where people would invest in both Bitcoin and Litecoin and use both at the same time. So I think that worked out well in hindsight.
Okay. So we're building this as a lesson learned conversation. So it's not all about the joys, it's also about the pain, but you know what doesn't really make you stronger, I think, is an integral part of anything that is as an open system like you know, the decentralized networks that crypto runs on. So let's delve into some of this, right? Like what, and that's you know, it's very easy to throw shade on regulators. And we're not going to let them go. They will get their piece. But I think let's start with a bit more, you know, inward-looking conversation. You know, if there was a high water mark, I suppose a low water mark is probably the better way to put it in terms of the negative associations that surrounding this industry. It really was, I'd say, 2022, and then time after that, with the collapse of these once trusted, now no more centralized exchanges. All of it, like just going to the line here. Have we learned the lessons from our peers?
Oh, I mean, who's we?
Yes, as we. You are
as
the church
people, you know, learned enough to not make the same stupid mistakes. No, that's not possible because it's human nature, right? I mean, it's not a crypto problem, right? Global, pick your long-term capital management, pick your favorites, you know, over-leveraged, you know, fraudulent transaction, weary balance sheet entity, and it doesn't have to be crypto. And my guess is that the mistakes of Enron and, you know, new industry, new fraud, right? And so unfortunately, that is the way of things. I've seen it 35 years in every industry, and it's going to happen in other industries again. I think that we have a better understanding of, you know, what the specific challenges are. It eliminated the kind of first generation CeFi space, you know, Luna, 3 Arrows, all that stuff just kind of went away. And that's good. I think the most important narrative for me when it comes to banking and investing in crypto is DeFi right now. And I think that we're going to see just $1 trillion flow into DeFi this cycle. And it's the lesson to me why I see it going from, you know, FTX blow up, which had a lot of CeFi to it, and ended up the fraud, and then now to the migration for DeFi. I think the time is right. It's both on Ethereum as well as Bitcoin itself.
Melvin, is there nothing we can do about it? I mean, to Bill's point, like it's just a while. Like it seems to me though that, well, of course, there is no such thing as a monolithic crypto culture or crypto community. There's never going to be sort of solid governance around it. You know, there are conversations around how could there be a better form of coordination or governance. There's also the apparent perception, certainly amongst outsiders, that yes, there are obviously scenarios, but there seems to be a greater degree of drama on a more frequent basis for everybody. And that may just be a function of how radical it is and how fast things move. But, you know, is there anything we can do about this? Is there any, you know, way to...
Well, I think the question is, when I started in the Bitcoin space, the vision was always permissionless financial innovation, right? And what we talk about is we're building unstoppable market infrastructure that anyone can utilize. You don't need permission from anyone. That's what's that's what's so fucking cool about Bitcoin, right? Is you don't need permission from anyone. You can build what you want. You can interact with the blockchain how you want. You don't need to even identify yourself. All you need is a wallet address, right? And so what I think is interesting is we're now in sort of this strange bifurcation of the world where you have a lot of people who are courting the institutional audience, right? And that's what I did for the last 9 years of my career in crypto was court the institutional audience because that's where the AUM is and that's how we bring trillions of dollars on chain and build this crypto economy that we're all here for and so excited about. But in doing that, there's a fundamental incompatibility of institutional capital with the principles of Bitcoin, right? That we started with, and the principles of permissionless, open source capital markets. And so we have this DeFi landscape, right? And now with passage of FIT 21, I think we're going to see a lot more, hopefully, regulatory sort of clarity on where the CFTC's purview starts and ends, where the SEC's purview starts and ends. I don't really care about any other regulator. People are like, oh, Dubai, oh, don't care. The United States of America, the largest capital market in the world, has always been, will always be. US dollar is the liquidity pair for the world. So it's nice that we're tiny markets. The US is really the market that's going to set the tone. So this world of DeFi, there's just fundamental incompatibility. But what I'm excited about is like crypto institutions. And what I loved about FTX, if I may say this, is FTX for the first time was a crypto native institution that showed up in a big way and was playing with the big boys in all of the traditional financial institutions. And I think for the first time, FTX really showed me and like opened my eyes to this idea that crypto institutions could be bigger than traditional financial institutions. So the question is, are we going to go and integrate and import, the traditional institutions and bring that capital on chain, or does crypto grow enough and do crypto financial institutions, the Coinbases or the Aves of the world, the Uniswaps of the world, become bigger than their traditional counterparts? And we're seeing that on some days, right, during really peak times of the market. Uniswap will do more volume than pretty much any traditional exchange in the world outside of NYSE and NASDAQ. That's super impressive, right? So that to me is like this interesting dichotomy. We're trying to push crypto into this institutional box, but it doesn't really fit there. And that tension, I think, is going to just continue to grow bigger and bigger as we have more ETFs and more sort of institutional wrappers and crypto products. But I'm still excited about the revolution. Like, I came for the revolution. I realized it's an evolution, and I'm like, the revolution's what gets me excited.
Stay for the revolution. Right. So, I mean, we chatted, a couple of days ago about some of this, and we talked about leadership.
I think things have changed a lot since they had that conversation.
With that leadership?
I know. I mean, just the nature of the U.S. Everything happened here. And
That's right. We had a quick call, and then all of a sudden the world has changed.
The world changed.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to this in a second. I really want to talk about the policy. About 15,000 already, but I want to deal with this again a little bit more about the FTX stuff, because it seemed to me that one of the takeaways was this, personification of crypto things, right? Sam Bankman-Fried with this project. This is something innately human. I think we do this. And I don't know how we deal with it, right? Because it's not supposed to be it is supposed to be a decentralized government. Now, do you want to weigh in on that?
Crypto loves, we love our messianic figures, right? This is where the cults of personality come in, which is why I love cults of personalities, like quasi-religious movements. Even if you look at crypto now,
It's the trust itself. It's the
yeah, what the community is oriented around, right? Right now we're in the phase of developer worship. We're in a phase of institutional worship. Every cycle has to have its leaders. I'm a big believer in mimetic sacrifice, right? So SBF was the mimetic sacrifice who paid for the sins of the last cycle. Did he deserve the sentence he got? Don't know. I'm not a judge or a jury, right? But again, SBF's the one who's getting pilloried and he's the mimetic sacrifice. But there are many other people who have participated in this absolutely diabolical and insane behavior that has really tarnished the reputation of our industry. And I think this cycle, again, we're seeing the same thing happening. That's why I said to Charlie and Bill jokingly, I've never been a main character. I don't want to be a main character ever. I'm like a little side character. I show up every 5 or 6 episodes. I have a couple of lines. But I'm not, I don't want to, yeah, a little cameo. I don't want to be a main character because the main characters go to jail. So thank you. But I think it's human nature. Even though this is decentralized, we need leaders. And even open source communities, right? Like traditional open source software communities and movements, they always have prolific leaders. Right now we're in the era of dev worship, right? Whether it's Sphere in the icon layer, or being a Uniswap, or even Vitalik, right, with Ethereum. We love it in the science crypto, but the goal is to never be the main character.
Right.
Well, it's hard to
You
be.
need to weigh on this.
Yes,
You indeed were public face, the leader of Litecoin. You had to make some dramatic decisions, and it wasn't always popular among Litecoin holders. So talk a little bit about the experience and leadership.
Well, it's interesting. Well, the reason why this panel is called OG Survivors is because it's actually pretty hard to survive in this space. Right? I mean, if you don't go to jail, if you like sign the wrong
And so
agreement.
none of us have gone to jail. It's one of the great achievements here. No one on this panel indicted either. Eh? Good.
And we have gone crazy.
And well, relatively.
Never ending trend of lower the bar.
Yeah, if you follow the wrong assignment, you can kind of get left behind, right? Or if you sign the wrong agreement, just remember, don't sign any agreement like named after a big city, and you'll be fine. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but yeah, it's hard to survive in this space. And obviously, there are people who manage to survive, like the people on stage here. But it's tough. Lots of people get into this space when the Bitcoin price is high, and then they can't survive because the price drops 90%, and they're just wiped out. They just have to sell at the low, and that's the worst thing to do, right? Buy high and sell low. That's like the opposite you want to do. So, unfortunately, yeah, it's just tough. It's very volatile, a lot of crazy things happening.
You had to make some decisions though at some point, right? Where you wanted to like back away from leadership. You ended up selling, I don't know, a lot of your coins, Litecoin to yourself. Can you talk through that experience?
Yeah, so I made the decision that, so the one thing about Litecoin that is different from most other coins, altcoins, is that it was fairly launched, so I didn't like create coins out of thin air and keep a lot to myself. So all the coins I have were bought on the exchange or mined with a computer. So I didn't have a lot to begin with, but I made a decision that I wanted to kind of divest all my coins so that I'm not someone that, I'm the creator, but not someone that holds or perceived to hold a lot of coins. And I think that's helped a lot to make Litecoin more decentralized. And you know, SEC comes knocking on my door every now and then. And one thing that they kind of see right away is that I don't have control of a lot of coins, and I'm not someone that is kind of in control of the coin, which makes it more decentralized. So in that sense, it's very good for Litecoin.
Okay, so SEC's coming knocking on Carly's door. SEC is also knocking on your door. So not indicted, but you certainly had to deal with, some actions. Talk to us a little bit about that experience and what's the takeaway in terms of where we are at in terms of this industry's relationship with regulatory agencies like this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a very, very strong feelings about this topic. And
The floor is yours.
I'll give you kind of my American spiel on this, which is very basic. I believe very strongly in a system of checks and balances. I think, three branches of government have managed to stay by and large in balance and actually do their job for the first 180 years. And for some reason, we know why now, but it's just a question of whether you care or want to see it. The pendulum has swung away from, let's call it, really working checks and balances to the integration of almost a fourth leg in a stool, which is the regulatory state, which I am now convinced, has basically managed to figure out how to operate by and large kind of next to the checks and balances. It can be pulled back in if the parties involved are big enough and can afford it. But otherwise, it just doesn't work, in terms of checks and balances. Okay, so now we've had interactions with dozens of regulators. The SEC is certainly the one that is most known. And a lot of times it's just innocuous, we're investigating all of you, have a nice day, right? Or to, we have questions about this specific product. And we went through that. We actually created the first synthetic dollar, which was, the term stablecoin didn't exist at the time. And so we figured out a way to peg the value of Bitcoin to the dollar using currency contracts. And, eventually had to basically shut it down. But we ended up using the technology to do other things that we weren't even actually running for users in the US. And even that ended up being a very costly legal fight, which we ultimately just capitulated on. I'm not even allowed to say what I really feel about it. I just have, it's honest,
We don't get to it.
right, and I'm a lawyer's best friend. I work in crypto and I talk. Yeah, and look, so the interactions never stop. The number of law firms that we work with is simply growing. They all know each other, which I find astonishing. I shouldn't say that, they're in the same industry, the degree to which they all know each other, hug it out on extensive occasions, I continue to find utterly fascinating, and an excellent job works program for the fourth leg in the U.S. government story. Maybe I'll stop there.
Okay, I was going to throw to you, Christopher, like I know we're getting through this, we've had these big votes and things, but I just want to quickly ask, when Bill talks about this like growing list of lawyers he has to deal with, I remember being in a room around the same time, 2015, when the bit license was being developed in New York. And there was a group of entrepreneurs and investors and others were trying to figure out how to respond to it. And Fred Wilson from Union Square Ventures said something like, well, as an investor, I know that I'm going to invest in Coinbase, I'm not going to invest in any of the other ones. Compliance cost. But they said Coinbase was relatively well capitalized. So all the little guys have got no chance to get over that barrier of compliance. As an investor, how do you think about that? How do you, I mean, you're obviously looking to help out small startups, but the compliance cost of all those lawyers and all of that just to be in business is such a barrier.
It's huge, especially seed stage. I specialize in early stage companies. I always ask people, how are you planning to use the capital that you're raising? If you're spending 20-30% on lawyers, good luck with that. That's just not going to work. So it is a challenge, but again, this is like the fundamental issue we have with financialization in the United States of America, is there's such a big regulatory moat, and people who are Congress doesn't write laws. We all know that, right? Lobbyists write laws. Lobbyists are hired by corporations, institutions to help write those laws. So a lot of what we're seeing getting passed, it's done in sort of this self-protection interest. And we've seen it time and time again in heavily regulated industries, which is really challenging to disrupt the status quo because the cost of doing so is just incredibly high. Here's the one thing that, again, that I go back to that we have on our side that is so incredibly profound. Bitcoin is the sort of best bootstrapping, it has the best bootstrapping mechanism ever, which is it leverages human greed, right? If you get involved in Bitcoin, number go up. Bitcoin is number one technology, which we love as more and more people adopt it, right? As it gets utilized, the value goes up because the economics of supply and demand sort of drive that. And as more and more people, more and more wealth is created through crypto, it gives companies a bigger war chest. Right? So there are a lot of companies who launch tokens, and this speculative capital that was created allowed them to actually get to a point where they could lobby and hire the lawyers and show up and actually write bills that get passed, which has allowed them to now get to a point where they can actually start to produce the things that they have wanted to produce. So I'm a big believer in sort of Carlotta Perez, she's a researcher. She has this brilliant book she wrote on technological revolutions and the formation of capital, of financial bubbles, right? And what's interesting about it is that a lot of people are like, oh, that's a scam, oh, that's vaporware, oh, but fun. But right, the vaporware, the scam, the speculation is a necessary component that will give these communities, these protocols, these companies enough capital, a big enough war chest to do what they need to do on the regulatory side, to build the infrastructure they need to build, to get the attention of the large financial institutions. Because let's be real, BlackRock would have never made a Bitcoin ETF if Bitcoin wasn't a $1 trillion market, right? It's just a reality. So I continue to be very optimistic about speculation and what I call the sky casino, where crypto is this incredible online casino and there's all these different tickers. The speculation is a part of what gets us to the point where people can build productive things. And I think in crypto we have this weird complex where we're like, oh, speculation is bad. Now we're going to do real use cases. And I'm like, speculation is a very critical use case. That's how humans and societies have like built progress over the last 200-300 years. So I think we need to embrace it because it gives us a war chest to go to DC and lobby and get bills passed, and that's very accomplished.
So we, not the following session tomorrow, this we've got Tom Anna, who's a man at the moment, who is going to give us a story about presumably getting Fit 21 passed. He may not go into all the details about how significant money was in that, but I think any politician is honest enough would recognize that it's a factor. So on that note, Charlie, what would you take? Do you feel like we had, Bill was setting up this story as a common one, and actually Representative Emma is a big critic of the SEC, but also I think of this concept of regulatory overreach. Do you see hope that some of that could get wound back now with the passage of at least in one house, the one check the law clarity?
I personally, I think it's getting more and more complicated. I'm not sure it's going to be easier moving forward. To piggyback on what Malcolm was saying, the interesting about investing in companies is that I would say like 99% of investment in a company doesn't beat Bitcoin itself. It's actually more profitable to just invest in Bitcoin. I mean, over the past like decade I've been in this space, I can only think of one company that actually beat Bitcoin, which is Coinbase. I honestly can't think of another company that actually like put money in a company that actually beat Bitcoin over the long term. One thing, back then in like 2011, 2012, I put $10,000 into Bitcoin magazine. It's still around, but that was when Bitcoin was $10. So instead of putting $10,000 into Bitcoin magazine, I could have put $10,000 into Bitcoin. And you don't need an MIT degree to figure out how bad that decision was to put $10,000 into Bitcoin magazine.
I don't know if David Bailey is in the room.
Another funny story is, so Bitcoin magazine got sold to David Bailey, and I got nothing out of it. So the magazine wasn't doing well. Tony Gillespie, the founder of BitPay, was another investor. There was like 5 or 6 investors that put in $10,000 initially back in 2011. So he set up a sale of the company to David Bailey, and the investor basically didn't get anything. And it turns out I happened to be like the deciding vote, and I blocked it for a bit because the founders of Bitcoin magazine weren't going to get anything from the deal either. So I wanted to make sure the founders actually got some money out of it. And one of the co-founders was a really smart writer by the name of Vitalik
I was going to say that to the show, man, when you were talking.
Yeah, so that's how I actually got to know Vitalik pretty well back then, because he was just writing for the Bitcoin magazine. He was like 19 years old, really young, something like that. And then a few years later, obviously, he created Ethereum. So I actually helped him earn some money from Bitcoin magazine. I don't know if he remembers. Maybe next time someone talks to him, you can ask him about that story. But yeah, that was very interesting.
But you could say that, like, yes, money is influential, but value is created in all sorts of ways, right? You could argue that Bitcoin magazine was the launch pad for Vitalik. I mean, gave him the chance to sort of get into this space. So there's so many other ways in which we create value, and I think it's manifested.
Well, can I just disagree with Charlie for a minute? There was some tension.
Please,
So I actually disagree. I think without investing in Bitcoin companies, without investing in the ADRAs and all of the different infrastructure and applications that are built on Bitcoin would never have reached the value it has.
No, I totally agree. Like, the reason why I invested in Bitcoin magazine is because I want to support the Bitcoin ecosystem, and the magazine was doing that.
You had no chance to invest in Bitcoin, you have to prove that was better.
Well, the CoinDesk story is fun.
It is a different story for another time.
We won't go there.
So Bill, I mean, yeah, what's your take on the political winds right now? You feel as if it's going to help you in this battle?
Long term, as far as I was concerned, it's not going to matter because we've lured up and we'll do whatever we have to. And it makes me sad to say that the bigger we get, the better the winds of regulatory capture will support us. I don't want that to be true, but that's the way the world works right now. As it relates to short-term kind of political environment, it's clear from the time we had the prep call for this specific panel to today, there's been a growing awareness, a trembling in the force, basically saying, hey, this block of voters, we have significantly underestimated them. The block is growing in power. We basically back the wrong horse on the Democratic side within our own party to set the tone for what this is. And if we don't start showing that we can actually support and recognize this block beyond just saying, crypto people are evil, degenerate developers, something is going to give, and they are in trouble now. by they, I mean the people that represent the wing of the party in charge that has been trying to kill our industry. It is not working. And that was what we saw last week, was the first public evidence that there are people in the party that get this, that they get that this attack has been adjunct failure, and we need a better approach. And maybe do no harm to start might be a really good place.
Can I break that down a little bit and then go way on this? You both sort of talked a little bit about the power of money, the emergence of this block that we can't ignore of voters. Is it purely that? Is it purely politics? Is it just, we rock back to our horse, as Bill was saying? Or is there a more hopeful view, perhaps, that, in fact, the loads and loads of lobbying and explaining and education that's been done on the Hill over the years has made these people, the lawmakers, recognize that there's some real value? I think it's all pure, nothing, it's all simple.
I mean, look, K Street is just like Wall Street, right? It functions on money. It's a revolving door, right? People leave DC and they go into private industry and they get paid millions of dollars because of these relationships they have. The other thing I think is really important to recognize, 40 million American adults own cryptocurrencies of some kind. Okay, so if you are going out, if you are, a Sherrod Brown, if you're an Elizabeth Warren, if you're a Katie Porter, and you're going out and you're telling your constituents, crypto is evil, crypto is terrible, people who invest in crypto are criminals, you are telling a large part of your constituents that they are not entitled to financial freedom. America was founded on the concept of freedom, right? And so I think it's very sort of ironic, and at the end of the day, it's like, these are your constituents. They are choosing to allocate capital, which are the biggest, most important decisions we make, right? As adults, it's like, what am I investing in? What is my financial future? If 40 million American adults are choosing to put their money into crypto, you should probably take it seriously because you represent your constituents. And that is, I think, what's really cool about what's happening now is they are being reminded, Katie Porter got kicked out of her seat. Why? Because there was a bunch of money spent by crypto lobbying organizations, right, to get her out of that seat and to get a pro-crypto candidate into that seat.
We have to wrap. We have very strict time. I want you to just go on. Could have gone on for ages, but like a round of applause here. Hopefully you got a lot out of that. The overcommitted life, your yes, we survived. We survived. Okay, so Bitcoin up there testing all-time highs. It was the OG cryptocurrency. It still really is the biggest, most important. So at this moment, the 10th consensus of September, it makes sense for us to step back and take stock of what's happening with Bitcoin. And who better to do that than Peter McCormack, the podcast host of What Bitcoin Did, who is going to be interviewing on stage none other than Kathy